Hello everyone, Kanasa here, and welcome back to Kerbal Gets Real, the next Millenia. At the start of this episode, we are once again going to be going to Norfolk in the UK for the New Horizons Space Agency's main launch site. This episode is mainly going to be focused on this mission. Well, at least this series of missions. This is going to be the Lunar sample rover that I did speak about at the end of the last episode. What we want to do, we want to send a couple of rovers over to the moon, and we want to bring back some of that all-important moon dust, preferably from one of the poles. This, however, isn't, well, it's not necessarily tied to that mission. However, this is going to be a component for a future part of the mission. This is going to be a test of a sky crane that will be able to lift the initial rover down onto the surface. The reason why I want to test this is I am using the Super Draco engines from the Crew Dragon capsule. They are very good for landing. They have quite high throttle ability. They have unlimited ignitions and they are hypergolic, so they are a very good landing engine. However, the one issue with them is their failure rate. They have a relatively high failure rate compared to a lot of the engines that I am going to be using in this series. So rather than using them for the first time, putting down a very expensive rover on the surface of the moon, thought I'd just send the sky crane down. And what I'm going to do with this sky crane, it's not going to be a regular sky crane. It does have a purpose as well. It does have a whole load of scientific experiments on it, which we can deploy when we are on the surface. And another thing we are going to be doing with this sky crane, which we can now see detached from the Unicorn module and beginning its final descent onto the lunar surface, well, we are going to be landing this on the far side of the moon. Reason why I want to do that is I want to make sure that my Marconi lunar relay network that I set up in the last episode, well, I want to make sure that it works, that we get constant coverage wherever we are on the moon, and it does. As you can see in the top left, we do have a connection which is being bounced through the Marconi relay, which is very, very promising. It means we are going to be able to go even all over the lunar surface and have constant communication back to Earth, which is going to be wonderful. We can do whatever we want on the moon. So, with that being landed, now it is time to turn our focus to the sample collection rover, the first rover that we are going to be sending down. I am going to be sending two. One of them is going to be this, which is going to drill samples out of the moon, and it's going to deposit them, hopefully, in little capsules all around where it goes. It's kind of like what Perseverance is doing, or what Perseverance will be doing even at the moment. And then what we will do is we will send a second rover along, which I did design mostly in a live stream, and it will go along, it will pick up those capsules, and it will deliver them to its kind of little launch pad that I have designed, and then we will be sending those back to Earth. Now, due to the constraints of Kerbal Space Program, I'm not really going to be able to do that, but I'm going to do something like that, so it looks like we're going to be able to do that. Anyway, we had a computational issue with the Unicorn stage for this launch, so unfortunately, we didn't even get to orbit, let alone the moon. So, on the 15th of December 2001, we are going to be launching Sample Collection Rover number 2. Unfortunately, well, yes, due to a few bizarre issues with the avionics on the Unicorn stage, we didn't get to the moon last time. So we are going to be launching pretty much the exact same spacecraft yet again on an Orpheus 9. Obviously, this was used a lot in the last episode. It is basically a Falcon 9, 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. It has an RL-23P on the second stage, which is a Hydrolox engine, so it is slightly different from the Falcon 9. Obviously, Falcon 9 being Keralox for both stages, but we have this time made it to orbit with the rover. Now it's just time to go to the moon. So we are going to be firing up that Unicorn transfer stage. This time, the computers are all looking good. Our avionics is fine. And there we go. We can see we have fired up that RL-10 engine to start our translunar injection and begin our way over to the moon. There we go. With a little bit of a spin, we can kind of get an idea of what this rover looks like. I am using the wheels from Kerbal Foundries for the rover because, well, quite frankly, I think they look way better than the stock wheels. And someone did design a patch for these to be compatible with RP1 over on my Discord. So if you don't know about the Discord, there will be a link in the description of this video. Great players, great community, definitely worth checking out. But there we go. We have finished our burn for our translunar injection, and with the magic of video editing, we are able to get over to the moon very, very quickly. Fire up that unicorn transfer stage one final time so that we get into a nice low circular lunar orbit. Now, I'm looking at the South Pole, and I see this rather flat section of land. So we are going to fire up the unicorn. I did tell a lie earlier on. We had a bit of fuel left, so we might as well use that to begin our descent onto the surface. And we are going to aim for that nice kind of plateau over on the south pole of the moon, bumping our solar panel of our sky crane as we do attempt to flip this rover around into the correct orientation. There we go. We are using Kerbal Engineer Redux to kind of really show us where we should be landing. There we go. We have the rover. We are ready to fire up those twin Super Draco engines. Now that we have tested those with the original sky crane, both of them fire up in unison. We have had no failures here, which is obviously very, very nice, because if only one of those were to go, well, it would result in a very, very destabilizing spin. Exactly like that. Mere meters away from the surface of the moon, and that happens. That was rather upsetting. However, we do have one of those engines remaining, so firing that up again and decoupling the rover, we were able to get the rover safely onto the surface of the moon. Now, however, I was having a few issues with the wheels. As in, I was sliding all over the surface, and there wasn't really anything that I could do to prevent this. So, yeah, this rover was a bit of a spectacular failure. Also, we lost the sample capsules. Now what we are going to be turning to, though, on the 8th of January 2002, is our first attempt at sending crew up to space. Well, I mean, it's not really sending crew. What we're doing is we are doing a static fire of those Draco engines. I don't think this is going to get us any data, but I just kind of wanted to do this. It's kind of like, from a realism perspective, we're making sure that the abort systems are all going to be working as they should. So later on in the month, on the 27th, we are going to be performing an in-flight abort test with the Ava. So the reason why I've called this Ava, from what I gather, is bird in ancient Latin. That wasn't really the reason why I wanted to go for this, no. No, I recently watched all of The Expanse, and I decided that Ava Serrala was probably my favorite character. There's no spoilers there. She's in it from episode 1. Yes, so I kind of wanted to name something after her, because her character is absolutely fantastic. I love her character, so for some kind of tribute, I guess, we're gonna name a rocket after her. Anyway, the launch clamps, well, not the launch clamps, the clamps that separate the capsule from the rocket did not go off correctly, so this was a bit of a failed launch abort test. I mean, the capsule did get away eventually, and we were able to bring it safely back down. However, in a real disaster situation, that would not be any good. So we have gone back into the vehicle assembly building. We have made a few slight edits so that hopefully the capsule will be able to clear the actual rocket when something terribly disastrous goes wrong. Well, hopefully nothing like that will ever happen, but you know, it's always good to have a plan just in case something like that does happen. So we are going to be attempting a second in-flight abort test with the Ava crew carrier. So the Ava crew carrier, I am using the Amalthea pod from Near Future, which can carry up to seven Kerbals. So this is quite a beefy capsule, but you saw then, we did manage to safely separate from the rocket, and we brought this down safely. But now, we are going to be turning to the Lunar Sample Rover yet again, and this is going to be the first launch of an Orpheus Heavy. definitely not inspired by a Falcon Heavy. No way. This is basically a Falcon Heavy. The Orpheus 9 is a Falcon 9, and this is my equivalent of the Falcon Heavy. We have 3 of those Orpheus 9 booster stages on the first stage, and the second stage of this is just a slightly elongated version of the Orpheus second stage. And this is able to lift about 55 tons to low Earth orbit. We did have to build a new launch pad for this to work. So, the New Horizons Space Agency does have a new launch pad at Norfolk, and it is the Tolkien launch pad. As I have said, I am naming all of my ones in the UK after famous authors. Lord of the Rings is my favourite book series. I've read that so many times, I decided to name my biggest launch pad after Tolkien. But we are on our way into space. We did see the separation of those boosters at, well, not that long ago. There we go, the payload fairing has deployed, and we can see the sample collection rover, well, the collection rover and the return modules on top of that pad. We have 3 rockets that should be able to return to Earth. So we can load them up with a sample each and send 3 missions back to Earth, which will be pretty cool. Pretty cool. Anyway, now what I want to do is I want to attempt to land these boosters. I don't know if there is a way that I could land these in unison like the real Falcon Heavy did with the mods that I have. If anyone knows if there is a way of doing this, please let me know, because that would look really, really cool. There we go. We have the first one down. Now we are just going to be bringing the second one down. They do touch the ground at about 25 meters a second, which is a tad too fast, but we do manage to safely recover them. They are becoming very, very reliable, these first stage boosters now. And I did mention in the last episode, I do want to kind of prove their worth before strapping crew onto the top of one of those rockets. And I think we are almost getting to the point where that is going to be a viable option. But anyway, there we go. The rover is on its way to the moon. Now we've just got to land this thing. And I have to say, landing this thing is going to be way easier said than done due to the center of mass of this rover being all kinds of janky. And we are using those Super Dracos yet again to try and land this. And as we've already seen in this episode, we've had 1 failure. So what are the chances we get another one? We are using the Unicorn 2 transfer stage now. The only reason why it's the Unicorn 2 is because it has 2 RL10 engines rather than just the 1. And yeah, because this thing weighed a lot more, I did obviously need the Orpheus Heavy to be able to get this to the moon, so we used a bigger transfer stage. But we did have another failure on one of those Super Dracos, which put us into a bit of an uncontrollable spin. The RCS on this is capable of maneuvering us, however, that spin was too much. We go crashing into the surface of the moon. All around, this lunar sample return has been quite a bit of a disaster. So what we are going to be doing now is the first attempt of the Ava crew carrier. This is just going to be a demo. We are not going to be launching any crew on this. I want to make sure that this is completely tested in every situation that I want it to be, uncrewed, before I ever even think about putting a Kerbal on top of one of these missions. Unlike Coming Home, which is my other Kerbal series, crew safety is going to be very, very important in this series. I do not want to have a single casualty. I really don't. I did quite well in Kerbal Gets Real. There was obviously one terrible moment where we lost 3 astronauts in a single mission, but aside from that, it went pretty well. And I want this series to kind of continue on with that. And as was the case with Kerbal Gets Real, if something like that happens, if we do have a crew death, there will be a big impact on the New Horizons Space Agency, maybe some kind of financial sanction penalty. Sanction wasn't really the right word, but yeah, no, we will be losing money, we will be losing something, maybe even time. I'm not sure what route I want to go down yet, but we will have to suffer the consequences of killing crew. So we are now getting the capsule down into the atmosphere yet again after spending a little bit of time in space. And as we can see, things are heating up a little bit. And unfortunately, well, the capsule blew up. So we are going to be going for a different design for our crew transport, and that does mean we are going to have to do another abort test and make sure that everything is all ready. But what we are going to be doing now is I have a Venus transfer window up. And I don't want to send anything particularly exciting over in this transfer window, being the first transfer window or interplanetary that I've really got. All I want to do is just send over a network relay, because that is going to be important. If I want to ever land anything on Venus or have anything in Venus orbit, it would be nice yet again to have a relay of satellites, so we're going to be able to get constant communication with Earth. Once again, we are using the Marconi series. It is exactly the same, and we have sent it on its way to Venus. So this is the new crew carrier, the SC, the Star Cruiser, because I am using the Starliner capsule, and I thought, well, I don't want to call it the Starliner. I don't want to completely rip the actual capsule. No, we're going to call it the Star Cruiser. It's close enough, but I just wanted it to be a little bit different. And yet again, this is going to be able to be launched on top of an Orpheus 9 to low Earth orbit. Won't be able to get any further than low Earth orbit, but that's all I really want to be doing with these crew capsules at the moment. I need a way of sending astronauts back up to space. It's been a long time since Kerbal Gets Real, and we need to figure out a way of breaking the bounds of the atmosphere and getting some people up to space. But the in-flight abort test was a complete success, so we are ready to perform its first demo on the 28th of June 2002. This is going to be exactly the same as the Ava demo, except obviously we've got a different capsule on the top. You can see it does use the Starliner capsule. We are using Orion solar panels, so it's a bit of a amalgamation, a bit of a chimera, a mixture of two different spacecraft. It looks hideously well. I don't think it looks that bad. I think it actually kind of turned out all right, but other people might not think that. Yeah, I thought it looked okay. Anyway, whilst I was talking about that, in between that, we did land the booster for this stage yet again. They are, as I have said before, becoming very, very reliable. We are landing more of them than we are not. In fact, I haven't failed a single landing of one of those boosters yet, which has been very, very, very nice. Some of them have come down quite fast and quite hard though, which obviously we will have to work on. I'll have to get my timings right, but the Starliner, or the Star Cruiser even, was more than capable of re-entering Earth's atmosphere. So, for the final launch of this episode on the 8th of July 2002, we are going to be sending over another one of these sample collection rovers. So, there have been a few edits made to this. I have now added a lead fuel tank onto that final stage as a kind of counterweight to the 3 rockets that we do have on there. We can see we have booster 1 down and we have booster 2 number down, and they came down quite softly. But we are at the moon now, and as I said, we have a lead counterweight, and that means that the center of mass the center of thrust should always be firing through the center of mass, making this a lot easier to land. We have ditched the Unicorn 2 transfer stage. We can see our initial rover on the moon below us, and we are firing up those Super Dracos. No ignition failure this time, so we were able to bring this down rather nicely. With only 4 meters per second left, we're going to fire up the Super Dracos one final time, and we have touched down on the south pole of the moon. However, something a bit bizarre happened about this mission. The wheels broke, for no reason whatsoever. A real shame. Anyway, the reason why I want to land at the South Pole and check out the South Pole is, in the last episode, I set up a ScanSat relay, and it does look like there is a lot of water prevalent in the South Pole. This is going to be very important for future missions, because I do want to use ISRU in this series. I have got the version of RO that ISRU has been included with, so I do need a location for water. We can use that water, we can mine that water so that we can keep our astronauts watered, make sure they're not thirsty, and we can also use that water and turn it into Methalox, as far as I'm aware. From the little bit of research that I have done, it looks like Methalox is going to be a viable option, so I imagine we'll be using a lot of Raptor engines in this series. Anyway, I tried to send a sample back, and it didn't work. We blew up in Earth's atmosphere. Yeah, the sample collection rover really wasn't. It really did not go well. So I came back to the rover to try and send another one. And yeah, well, this happened. And I don't know what caused this. There was an explosion before this, but I wasn't recording at that point, so unfortunately I didn't capture it. However, that is going to be the end of this episode. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, why not give it a like? If you've really enjoyed it and want to keep up with the content on my channel, please do consider subscribing. I'd like to give a big thanks to my patrons for their continued support, and I have been Karnasa, and I will see you later.